One of the techniques they used back in the day, Tim, was to photostat documents over and over again to blur them intentionally and then turn them over to the people requesting them.
So that you couldn't read them.
Right.
Mm-hmm. But so this was so they could claim they turned it over legitimately, but now you can't.
Right. And also a lot of the files are files that we've seen before that are now unredacted. So, but the redactions are so minimal that the unredactions are minimal. In other words, it'll say the government of Australia that was redacted.
Oh.
So now you see the word Australia. You know what I mean? So you start to see that. But they're meaningless unredactions, but they're the same files.
So what is there something they have not released that we do need to see? Is there some kind of incriminating evidence?
We don't know yet. We really don't know. Until we go through all these documents, we're talking out of school because it's going to take months and months to go through them all.
Well, we are looking for the IRS records. That's
there's things that we want personally. Everybody's got their own thing. Like Jefferson Morley, he's looking for stuff on George Joannides, who was a CIA operative who ran the JM Wave program out of Miami. I'm personally, that was the program of propaganda and radio broadcast that we broadcast into Cuba, part of like the Voice of America, you know, what's it called? Radio Liberty. The CIA had their own propaganda program against Cuba.
So if we can, I think we need like a launching point. Can you give me the elevator pitch to what you believe happened with the JFK assassination?
Yeah, I don't know if there's an elevator pitch, but the mastermind of the assassination, if you want to read a book by a guy named Philip Nelson, who just passed away, he wrote a book called LBJ, Mastermind of the Assassination. And most people believe that LBJ was the mastermind of the assassination. Now, I don't mean the nuts and bolts. He didn't get his hands dirty in that regard. There are plenty of people below him. David Atlee Phillips was the head of the Western Hemisphere CIA based in Mexico City. We believe that he was physically involved. He had an alias, Maurice Bishop. He was physically interfacing with the Cubans to pull off the physics of the assassination. But the mastermind of it, most people believe, was LBJ at this point. He was facing jail. He was about to be imprisoned. Life magazine was about to come out with a cover story on November 22nd of the crimes that he had committed with a guy named Bobby Baker, who was his underling. They had been linked to, in Maryland, actually, Ocean City, Maryland. They had a motel strip there where they brought in prostitutes and girls for congressmen to come to Ocean City, and they filmed them, and there was a lot of things going on in Ocean City, Maryland. But the bottom line was the Attorney General of the United States at the time was feeding information to Life magazine, Time magazine, and Newsweek about LBJ's corruption. LBJ was...
They published... Was stuff published?
Yeah, stuff was published about LBJ, and more was about to be published. And the assassination actually took that off the news cycle.
Do you know which copies of the Life magazine would have those stories?
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
I have every copy of Life magazine right there.
The main copy was the one that didn't come out, which was scheduled to come out November 22nd. There are plenty of them. It's Bobby Baker bombshell. There's a bunch of Life magazine, Newsweek articles. I could send you copies.
Well, so in the other room, I have 3 shelves with every copy of Life magazine. It'd be interesting.
Yeah, look at Bobby Baker bombshell. I think it's probably in October, November of '63. It's starting to cook. And if you think that the Vice President of the United States can't go to jail, you're sadly mistaken, because a couple of years later, Spiro Agnew went to jail, who was Nixon's vice president. They were going to incarcerate LBJ, and RFK hated his guts and vice versa. This is one of the most legendary feuds in American politics. LBJ famously said on numerous occasions, "I am going to cut his throat if it's the last thing I do." And he would give the sign of the finger across the throat about RFK.
And then he became president.
He made himself become president by doing this. I mean, most assassinations of leaders are usually what's known as a second-in-command assassination. Historically, going back to Roman times, that's usually the guy who's got the most to gain. He had means, motive, and opportunity. It was his operation in Texas. It was his police force in Dallas. Everything about the assassination was fingerprinted by LBJ. I mean, he literally micromanaged every single part of the assassination after the killing. calling up the hospital, speaking to surgeons, speaking to the chief of police, speaking to the DA. This is the president of the United States at this point now.
Was this a coup?
It was a military coup with LBJ waiting in the wings.
So I've heard from a lot of people. We get, people will chat and they'll say this was the dawn of the deep state.
Well, it's not only the dawn of the deep state, but it has echoes of what we've just been through for the past 5 years, because Joe Biden was a pale cardboard cutout of LBJ. He was a crime lord president who was deeply entrenched in Democratic politics. I mean, he really was what Joe Biden wanted to be. He was, in other words, right?
Well, they compare him.
Yeah, I mean,
he compares himself to.
He compared himself to LBJ. I mean, that was his mentor, is LBJ. I mean,
I think
LBJ.
he was in Congress at the time. Didn't he just barely go into Congress?
I don't know if there's any overlap between the two. Because
I maybe. I mean, Biden was in for 50 years.
Yeah, I don't know. They might have overlapped at the beginning of his career, but I mean. The fact of the matter is, LBJ had his fingers into so much corruption. General Dynamics would put $50,000 in a bag and give it to Cliff Carter. If you wanted a defense contract, you had to go through LBJ in the Senate. Tim?
Biden was 73.
Okay.
Yeah. Well, he dies in 73.
Yeah, so, yeah.
Thanks for watching this clip from the Culture War podcast. We're live every Friday, 10 a.m. to noon, so subscribe and come hang out.